Bell seems to be in order.
Billy?
Uh-huh.
Hello.
Ah, then welcome to...
I am not going to get hurt this time. I'm not giving up! Well, I put out a poll, and it would seem that 2023's Wonka is the clear-cut winner. Given I'm somebody who actively defends the 2005 movie, you may be wondering, will I do the same thing here? Well, it's complicated. Reviews are very mixed on this, but I think the general consensus is it's a bit disappointing. I think the best way to describe it would be playing it safe. This honestly feels more like a kid's movie, and then again, there's times when it doesn't, but more on that later. Obviously, it's a prequel to the original, showing us how Wonka became the famous chocolatier, but while watching it, I occasionally questioned if that was even the case. I don't want to say cash grab, but I kind of have to lean in that direction. I didn't expect the best, or even second best, as I like both the ones we have, but it just doesn't seem like it knows what it wants to be, and I just don't see being a fan of this if I grew up with either of the other two movies. Personally, all I wanted was a fun musical adventure that had me going, I could see him becoming Gene Wilder, but instead we got, well, like I said, it's complicated, so let's take a look at Wonka and see what it does do right. Well, given it's a musical adventure, we open with music.
Got a tattered overcoat and battered suitcase. Got a pair of leaky boots upon my feet.
This is actually a pretty good intro that shows off two things that are very consistent. First off, music. It's nothing spectacular, but for the most part, the songs are consistently good. Aside from one we'll get to later, but I'd still say the other two movies have this beat. The original is a classic whether you love it or hate it, and if you saw my video on the Johnny Depp movie, you'll know I'm quite fond of it. I never thought those songs were forgettable, but these kind of are.
There's Brandino's and the bar Parisian. Restaurant maps up, thank you.
They're not bad, probably one of the better parts of the movie, but they don't stand out that much. That being said, the way he continues to lose his sovereigns is pretty clever.
I've got 5, 6, 7. 6 silver sovereigns in my pocket.
To all of you who hate this movie, it needs to be mentioned there is stuff to like about it, and Timothée Chalamet, who plays Wonka, does a great job here. That's the other thing I said was consistent, but not entirely in a good way. Aside from an obvious moment of desolation that will come later, there's not much to his character that you won't get out of the opening song.
Here's my destiny, I just need to unlock it. Will I crash and burn or go up like a rocket?
And that's really a shame, because he's definitely capable. I fully believe this version of Wonka could become the character we know, but spoiler, that's not what happens, and it may be the biggest crime of this movie. The actor is kind of wasted. But credit where it's due, this bit is genius.
No daydreaming.
Despite the movie's quality, this is what an intro song should be. So after losing all of his money, he meets a stranger named Bleacher, played by Tom Davis, who tells him sleeping outside is not a good idea, and invites him to a boarding house run by Mrs. Scrubbit, played by Olivia Colman.
Husband? Him? Oh, you'd love that, wouldn't you?
No.
Yeah, that's another thing about this movie. The surprisingly good comedy really holds up. Again, it's not the kind of thing you'll see in the original, but there are a lot of funny moments here.
What are you doing?
Don't worry, it's going to a good cause. Sick kids or something.
One moment of stupidity followed by endless regret.
Sounds like my third marriage.
I have water in my ears.
Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Whisked me off to a life of adventure. Could that be you?
No.
Shouldn't we be focusing on all those unsolved murders?
No. This is the priority. Tell me what it is, or I shall poke you quite viciously with a cocktail stick.
You know what you've done, Julius? You've sold your soul for 30 pieces of chocolate.
A lot of these bits seem to be aimed at adults, and that's kind of odd because I don't think the rest of the movie is. But again, more on that later. She tells him he can have a room for one night and pay the next day, but their orphan, Noodle, played by Calah Lane, tells him to read the fine print. He of course doesn't, and it becomes clear these two are not exactly good.
You ever interfere in my business again and you'll be in this coop all week, do you understand?
Yes, Mrs. Scrubbit.
The next day he goes to sell chocolate, and a few things are made apparent. One, we're not going to see how he gained his knowledge on making chocolate. That's already happened. And this is more of a loose prequel.
Mr. Slugworth, sir.
Excuse me.
Yes, Mr. Slugworks, played by Paterson Joseph, is not the same guy, for obvious reasons. Look, I don't really care that he's black, but there is 3 of them that make up the chocolate cartel, so you really didn't need to change the one everyone knows. And yes, it does tie into something later, but that's something that could have been altered too. It's nothing that spectacular. The trio doesn't like Wonka though, stating chocolate is meant to be basic. They then start floating, the means of which are explained in a way nothing like the original, but apparently somebody complained, leading to his earnings being confiscated. He does leave him 1 sovereigns to pay for his room, but as expected that's not enough, and again, the way they explain it is pretty damn funny.
There was that glass of gin you had on arrival. Cock a warm in his extra, see?
Use the stairs to get to his room and all.
And that is per step, I'm afraid, up and down.
Mini bar of soap.
By the sink.
I might have, briefly.
Add in your mattress hire, your linen lease and your pillow penalty, and you are looking at 10,000 sovereigns.
Obviously, it was in the fine print, and he must spend 27 years paying it all off. He meets the other victims who wound up in there for the same reason, and they sing about, scrubbing.
Then you take it to the mangle and you turn the giant handle, scrub.
It's maybe one of the more memorable ones. There's a lot of songs in this. After this, we find out that Wonka can't read because he only studied chocolate, thus being the reason he didn't read the fine print, and that Noodle is also stuck there.
Took me in out of the goodness of their hearts and charged me for the privilege.
We then move into a flashback, something that classic fans don't like, at least when it comes to the 2005 movie, and we see Wonka's mother, played by Sally Hawkins, in a scene that does look unique.
Soon after, she fell sick. Before I knew it, all I had left was her bar of chocolate.
Okay, that is kind of sad, and she said she'd see him again when he shared his chocolate with the world. We then meet some more characters, a corrupt priest, played by Rowan Atkinson, and the chief of police, played by Keegan-Michael Key. It's the damn Predator movie, I can't get it out of my head. They're all involved with the chocolate cartel, and explain to him that he may have to do something about Wonka if he proceeds to sell chocolate. And I really like how they explain it.
He is liable to meet with a little accident,
in which he dies.
We then move on to what may be my favorite song in the movie, just because of its comedic gimmick.
Don't give me that conscience nonsense. It's simply quid pro quo.
Having to persuade the chief opposed to him just being bad right off the bat is just damn funny, and the song is real creative.
Sorry, I'm afraid it's no.
But think about your sweet tooth.
I do.
On top of that, the jokes about weight are a nice addition, and the way it ends is real comedic, almost making you think he's not gonna do it.
Keep your wretched chocolates.
1,800 boxes.
Oh,
Again, the songs in this movie are not bad, they just don't stand out that much to me, but this one is the exception. Meanwhile, Wonka devises an escape plan by convincing Scrubbit that Bleacher is an aristocrat. I guess somebody finds this funny, and he escapes via the laundry. The plan is to sell chocolate and pay off the debt, but the problem is it's been stolen.
Who by?
The little orange man.
We'll get back to the topic of this important character around the halfway point or something. For now, they have to make chocolate, and they need milk. Milk from a Giraffe, that is, again hinting at this being a prequel only loosely, as in the original, weird stuff only existed in the factory, not outside of it, and it's explained she was given the name Noodle because of a ring, being all she has left of her parents.
For a moment, life doesn't seem quite so bad.
Okay, that's pretty good. Being a musical, everybody should...
Noodle, noodle, apple strudel. Some people don't and some people doodle.
Yeah, this is when you question who this movie was made for. This is very obviously aimed at kids, and as mentioned earlier, a lot of stuff in this movie feels that way, and a lot of stuff doesn't. That being a number of comedic moments, I don't really see kids laughing at most of these, so it's just odd they put so much effort into that, and then gave us stuff like this.
Singing this song will improve your noodle-dee-dee.
It's a shame, because normally this kind of harmonizing sounds good, but they chose this song to do it with. Probably goes without saying, but this is the song I mentioned earlier that I said we'd get to. It's not that good. It would also seem the endeavor took all day, but given what we just sat through, this is definitely enjoyed.
Do not sell chocolate in this town! You got it?
Again, it's still played as a joke, but I wish the movie could have had more of this. Embrace the darker elements that could have led to the original. Aside from the comedy, there's not that much of it. Hit the like button down below. I think that's reasonable. And subscribe if you enjoy the video. Because otherwise, that's not reasonable. I guess. We're given some exposition that explains the chocolate cartel waters down the chocolate and keeps the excess in a vault under the cathedral, which they use to bribe and blackmail the competition. But I would have preferred we didn't randomly get a scene explaining this. Most of it's already obvious, and yeah, the vault will come into play later, but we really didn't need a scene like this. Wonka gives Noodle her lifetime supply of chocolate? And Noodle agrees to teach Wonka how to read. This will get brought up again in a few minutes, affect the climax slightly, and that's it.
Positively shocking.
They all decide to team up and devise a plan to sell chocolate, this time escaping whenever they might be seen. And for a musical, there may be too much music in this.
Chocolate, and there's chocolate. Only Wonka's makes your confidence skyrocket.
It doesn't even work here.
This is a rehash of a song I skipped over, making it the second song they repeated, and it's good. It's definitely creative and fun to watch, but we're at about the halfway point, and this is the 7th song.
Don't despair, I come prepared, behold my hair repair eclair.
It does seem like they fell back on it too much, but one thing I will give credit on is the spectacle. You can't deny, this is nice to look at.
Have you ever had chocolate like this?
It's kind of an it is what it is deal. There is a lot to like here, but it needed some variety. He sets a trap for the Orange Man, who we see as an Oompa Loompa named Lofty, played by Hugh Grant.
The day you destroyed my life.
This has the potential to be real funny, and for the time being, it kind of is. As we move into another song you may recognize.
Loompa, doompa-dee-doo, I've got a tragic tale for you.
It's actually a good modern take on the classic song, explaining that Wonka took the cocoa beans on his watch, resulting in him being kicked out.
You came along and pinched the lot.
Hey, why didn't you say something?
Well, perhaps I drifted off.
He then manages to escape with more of his chocolate, after he willingly hands him a frying pan. But despite this being one of the better scenes in the movie, it took more than half the movie to get to this point, and he barely shows up again. You would think he'd be one of the main characters, especially if you saw the trailers, but no, he's in like 2 or 3 more scenes, and that's it. Again, comedy's not one of the things the movie's lacking, but it's still a waste of potential. They managed to rent out a cheap building to make themselves legit, leading to, you guessed it, another song. It's okay.
A world of your own, where you can be free.
It doesn't last too long, though, as the chocolate appears to be poisoned, which is another problem with this movie. A lot happens in it. Maybe too much. Compared to the simplicity of the other two films, we just saw them purchase a building, immediately have it set up, and then fall apart right after. Now, it does lead to one of my favorite lines in the movie.
I want my money back. I want compensation. I want revenge.
But it's still a lot of shit happening with almost nothing but yet another song in between, and it doesn't even make sense when you think about it. The whole point of buying the place was so they'd be legit, but the cartel knows he's supposed to be in the boarding house. We see this, so why even bother having them poison the chocolate?
And even if you could get out, that contract is watertight.
If you're not here at roll call, Mrs. Scrubbit will call the police. They'll bring you right back and...
Yet you're all able to be here and nothing happens. On top of that, they then agree to pay off all of their debt if Wonka agrees to leave, and never make chocolate again. Why? They burnt the place, he's technically not allowed to be there. Wouldn't this be a good offer? Then it turns out the ship is rigged to explode because they're really evil, I guess. But even for plot purposes, that's not needed either, because he finds out the ring Noodle has is the same as Slugwork's ring, meaning it must mean something, so danger and all that. But again, just too much shit going on that serves no purpose, aside from making a movie that seems to be aimed at kids longer than it needs to be. At some point, you do lose interest, and even a younger audience is not going to be entertained forever. But get this, despite paying off most of their debt as they agreed, they instead paid them to keep Noodle there forever.
My friend, Mr. Slugworth, doesn't think nasty little urchins like you should be out on the streets lowering the tone.
That looked racist. I know that's not the intention, but somebody's got to complain about this. They immediately bust her out. The pacing in this movie is not good, and devise a plan to steal the cartel's account book and incriminate them. There are some good jokes here too, but this is getting lengthy. The point is, they have a giraffe rampaging in the cathedral, thus creating a distraction, and they locate the account book. It's too late though, as the chocolate cartel catch on to this, leading to the ultimate twist that Noodle and Slugworth are related, being his brother's daughter. We find out the N is actually a Z that stands for Zebedee, and this is the thing I mentioned earlier that feels tacked on and lazily implemented, but I can't deny it's pretty damn funny.
Instead, you put me down a laundry chute.
Bye-bye, baby. When your mother returned, I told her you had died. She was heartbroken, of course, but I gave her a handful of sovereigns and had her escorted from my property.
What was her name?
No, I don't think I could remember that. Sorry, but you have to understand. She was very poor.
Obviously, there's no meaning to this being thrown in so late in the movie, but there's just something comedic about him being such an asshole. He just seems proud of it. He also tells her her mother's name is Dorothy, ending the reading subplot, and they attempt to drown them in the chocolate. That's a dark moment the kids aren't gonna miss. It's not a slightly mature joke. They basically accept the fact they're probably gonna drown.
Deep breath now.
The problem is, I've kind of lost interest at this point. But if the movie had been more consistent, this really could have gone a long way. Lofty finally does something and saves them, and while this could have so easily been he just did it because he kind of likes him now, or he still owes him chocolate, the reasoning seems to be that Wonka gave the three the chocolate he owed him, and since they ate it, which he assumed they would, he emptied their chocolate for a payback, which wouldn't do any good as he has no way of containing it.
Terribly ingenious, highly imaginative, incredibly inventive.
I know you might be saying you're thinking too much into this, but no, I'm just legitimately trying to find a way to explain what's going on. I'm not the one who thought this up. Again, all it had to be was he saves them because whatever. Instead, it's because they ate his chocolate, and it makes no sense. So the cartel get their comeuppance, most importantly the chief, because of this. And something else gets concluded that I didn't have time to talk about, but it was pretty damn funny. He also finds the note his mother left him after eating what would have had to have been real old chocolate. Noodle reunites with her mom because ending. And another familiar song ends off the movie.
In a world of pure imagination.
It's a ruined castle.
And he finally builds his factory in an abandoned castle that doesn't look like that same structure. But despite this being another good rendition of a classic song, I just don't believe that this guy becomes the same Wonka that casually tells a dad there is a 50-50 chance their daughter is going to burn to death. Also, before I forget, bonus stuff, characters getting their comeuppance and whatnot. But by simply showing us the factory being built and repeating a few songs, doesn't change the fact that this ending feels anything but deserved. This has proven not to be an easy film to sum up, but I think the best way to describe it would be playing it safe. Playing it safe is definitely the best bet here. That's what they did, and it leads to what could have been a fantastic adaptation feeling more like a letdown. A pretty big letdown, actually. The flaws are unavoidable, but I do want to stress it's not all bad. The jokes are actually the best part, they're real good and consistent. There's too many to even include here. And the songs, despite not being the best, are also quite enjoyable. The positives don't end there either. There are a lot of nice scenes in this, a number of memorable moments, and I'm not gonna deny I enjoyed it to an extent. It was clearly not gonna be the movie I wanted. There was no attempt to build up to the character played by Gene Wilder. It simply wasn't the idea. It's definitely a loose prequel, and I was willing to look past that and enjoy it for what it was. That is, until about the halfway point, and then things get a bit ridiculous, with elements that really weren't needed, that made no sense, and eventually I just wanted it to end. I'm not gonna re-emphasize the flaws, we've done that enough at this point, but no matter how you look at it, the movie is kind of a mess. It doesn't seem to know what it wants to be, some parts are going to annoy adults to death, while others may give children nightmares, and I just don't know what it's meant to appeal to. I originally thought children, but a lot of effort has been put into elements that aren't doing that. So in the end, I really don't know what to think about this. It's why at the beginning I said it was complicated, but I still have to lean toward this being a cash grab. I don't want to do that. There are parts of it I like, effort clearly was put in, but just not enough and not in the right places. Would I recommend it? It depends on what you want, I guess. Personally, I'm glad I saw it. It's not bad enough to call it a complete waste, but I don't see myself coming back anytime soon. For someone who doesn't favor the original the most, I feel this could have been the best, given the talent at hand, especially the lead actor, but instead it still ends up being the worst, which is sad, because it so easily could have been great. I'm the analyst, and remember kids, due to this movie being a letdown, there is no new Best Wonka movie, meaning the 2005 movie is still the best adaptation. Get over it.
So, you've made it to the end. That's an impressive feat indeed. Since you managed that, I guess check out the gaming channel, in which I cover a variety of gaming topics, like analysis videos, such as this one. If you're into that, then press the link in the description. It's that simple.